Hello everyone, and welcome to the Gemini July 2021 self-connection reading. Welcome. This is I Am Illuminated Tarot and meaning-based spiritual coaching services. I am Lauren. Welcome. So this is one of 3 videos that I will be releasing each month that focus on the 3 aspects of connection, which are connection to self, connection to spirit, and connection to partnerships or your interactions with others. And each one of these readings is meant to bring awareness to some aspect of your greater experience. So bring awareness to yourself, and this is your unique individual spiritual self where all of your hopes and dreams and needs reside. The connection to spirit, which is looking more at how you connect your internal unique self to your external environment, and then your connection to bringing that your authentic self into union and connection with others and their unique selves, and how that interplay can unlock additional senses of, or a sense of purpose and place and meaning for you. So all of my readings focus on utilizing the Triad of Engagement, which is a counseling tool that I have developed that works with the 3 basic principles of curiosity, courage, and contemplation to show you how just by working with these principles, you can unlock that awareness and connection to self, that awareness of connection to spirit, which is the collective experience, and the connection to others. And this is all in trying to allow you to engage your authentic self with your external environment, to allow you to find meaning and to experience emotional fulfillment and to be able to see your place and purpose in the greater collective experience. All right, Gemini, so since this is all about connection to self, we are going to pull a card for curiosity, courage, and contemplation. We're going to get a question for you to ask yourself throughout the month to bring awareness to some aspect of self that needs to be highlighted. So I'm going to pull a card. The first card is going to be a Power of Surrender card for curiosity. And when we're thinking about curiosity, we're opening up this, what I would say, usually what curiosity is an external, it's us being curious about our external environment. But when we're looking at connection to self, we are turning this inward. And this is where we become curious about ourselves, curious about perhaps a part of ourself we have forgotten about, a part of ourself that we haven't worked with in a while, or a part of, or even needs that are not being met of our own, or our ability to create. Now we each have our own unique abilities to create. Ooh, and that is way too many cards. We are gonna pare that down. That was like half the deck here. We each have our own abilities around creation and how we can create and manifest in our external environment. And sometimes we forget these. So this can even be being curious as to what creative ability we have not been working with. Okay, so Gemini, your card this month for July, as far as being curious about yourself. So this is kind of the opener energy to what you're focusing on in self, is surrender worry. And it says, make a commitment not to lead an anxiety-driven life. When worries arise, breathe them out of your body. Focus on the power of your heart and have faith that Spirit is guiding you always. I love this message. So Gemini, you are an air sign, and you naturally rule the thoughts in the head. And a lot of times that can lead to worry, because worry tends to manifest in the mind and then gets pulled down into our emotional core, where that becomes anxiety and that becomes that feeling of stress. And so for you, when we're thinking about being curious and we're thinking about bringing this inward to our unique, authentic self, The question I would ask myself this month as you're going through is, where are you finding yourself excessively worrying? What aspect of your engagement? So when you are engaging as yourself, when you're, what is your initial response to your external environment with regards to bringing out parts of yourself authentically? Where are you instantly kind of being triggered from a place of worry? So be curious as to when you start to feel that sense of anxiety, feel that sense of worry, feel your mind kind of going down the negative what if train, especially when it regards an aspect of self that is unique to you. So whether this is your self-expression, whether this is a mode of being for yourself that you get worried about, whether this is, some good examples to think about to tie into being curious about where you're worrying. Are your worries generally external? So trying to worry about controlling things external to you, or is your worry more about bringing something inside out? Meaning, do you worry that parts of yourself are going to be seen? When worry comes out, are you worried? So let's say you notice that your worry tends to be around the reaction of others and trying to mitigate and control how others will respond and react to you or to what you're, expressing. Now, this can be you having an issue with control, an issue with understanding that we can't control another's reaction. That's actually an illusion. People will do what they want to do ultimately. The area of control really lies within us and our ability to take action. So all we can do is take action and then have faith that that person will react in the way that they do, hopefully in a beneficial way. But when you're being curious as to how this ties back to yourself, this is where you need to start to be curious as to, well, is my attempt at controlling another's response limiting me from authentically expressing myself? So for instance, if you're planning an event and you are trying to make everybody happy, trying to take, 20 different people's needs and have them be met, and in doing so, you actually are not planning the birthday event for yourself that you want, because you're like, well, it has to be outdoors because this person has a dog, and then my other friends have children, and so it has to be in a children-friendly place, and then I know this person doesn't like this kind of food, so I can't have it at this restaurant. And you realize that where your worry and anxiety comes from is basically you trying to not express yourself authentically, to not say, I just want to have my birthday party at this kick-ass Indian food place that I love. And I'm so sorry if you don't like Indian food, and if it's not a dog-friendly environment, and if children don't really fit into the picture here because they don't have a children's menu. It's more about realizing you can release all those worries. And if these people really are important in your life, and this is where curiosity, when we start to open up curiosity from a place of optimism and receptivity, really tapping into that sense of being a child again, of like, I love Indian food and I want to share it with everybody, is that most people are going to respond, especially the friends and family that you choose to keep around you. There's a reason why they want to be around you, right? And this is where you get to be curious about who also wants to support you. You get to open yourself up to parts of yourself that you want to express, and you get to open yourself up to seeing the reaction in the external environment, knowing full well you can't control that external reaction, but that you can see what happens as a optimistic bystander. So this is about being curious as to what parts of yourself are you holding yourself back from expressing authentically because you feel like you have to meet everybody else's needs. or that you feel if you express this part of yourself, people are going to come like push back on you. It's not on you, again, to control their reaction. If the person who doesn't like Indian food doesn't want to come, that's their decision. But they also have the choice, and this is the beautiful way of battling anxiety around the unknown towards bringing out a part of yourself, is that that person always has their own options. That person can very easily call ahead to see if the Indian food place will accommodate them bringing in a meal from outside because they have food allergies or whatever. Or this is where that person can just say, you know what, I'll eat ahead of time and come and I'll have a slice of birthday cake with you, but I can't wait to celebrate. This is where we have to allow others to be solution-based as much as we are also solution-based, having a solution mindset. So, in addition to that, so let's say it's not where you worry about other people and you're not trying to control external things through limiting your own parts of self from being expressed. Let's say it's more about you just worry about, in general, some aspect of your life, some aspect that's tied directly to yourself. Let's say you find yourself in really looking and being curious about the concept of worry, but you find yourself worrying constantly about your career. And when we're thinking about self-connection and you're constantly worried, am I doing my best? Am I connecting the best parts of myself in the work world? Am I actually being utilized in the way that I feel like I can be? Or you're constantly worrying about, if you're a parent, am I being the best parent to my child? And this is, as you start to kind of focus on where are you worrying and how is it directly connecting to unique parts of yourself? What you can do then at that point is start to realize, okay, sometimes worry does have a place. As much as, yes, it can be a mental we're just coming up with things to worry about that may or may not exist. The other part of worry and anxiety is that it's actually highlighting some aspect of self that needs to be highlighted, that we are blocking ourselves off from. And when we're looking at this on an internal level, if you're constantly worried about, I'm not in, that my work is not this driving passion of mine, and I'm worried that perhaps with every day that goes by, I'm missing my calling doing something else. Well, probably because you're feeling this way, you very well might be. And this is where then we have to kind of turn that spotlight inside of curiosity to say, why do I feel this way? Why do I feel this so strongly? Why do I feel this worry so strongly about I might be missing my calling? Do you know what your calling is? This is where we start to open ourselves up to, okay, worry and anxiety are not necessarily negative feelings. Sometimes they're actually useful tools. And in order for us to get past them, we have to see and utilize, we have to see what they're trying to point and highlight within us. And that has to start within us first, because again, kind of like my example of you trying to control everybody else through, changing what you want to do for your birthday party, that can become, worry can be shown as a control, an issue with control. And we have to realize that, again, worry can be mitigated by realizing the control always lies within us. And no, we cannot control everybody else. And no, we cannot control external circumstances. But we always have the ability to be curious about ourselves and to be able to act from our own place of control. So you can still be happy going to the Indian restaurant with a few of your friends for your birthday, even if 3 of your friends have to say no because they can't find a babysitter for their kids and one person doesn't, has to bring their dog and, whatever it is. But it's not going to stop you from, it should not stop you from enjoying your time, nor should it stop them from saying, happy birthday, we love you so much, we will bring you a slice of cake the next time we see you. Okay, so worry. Using worry this month as the point of curiosity, as the spotlight, as your internal starting place. Where are you worrying, and what is it highlighting for you? Again, are you worrying about yourself in relationship to the external? Are you worried about a certain aspect of self, like worried about your relationship to work, worried about your relationship to family? So we're starting there. Now we're moving into courage. Now I'm going to pull a spirit animal card for courage. And courage is really where this is our seat of personal power. This is where we take the courage, have the courage to make the decision to take action. So as an example as to how to utilize this would be where, okay, we realize we are constantly worrying, like at the back of our mind, the majority of our time this month is worrying about, am I fulfilling a greater need through the work that I do? And okay, you start there. So now the action, now where we have to take courage is, okay, well, what needs to change in my life? What do I need to realize about this part of myself that might require action? So we have Hawk Spirit. It says, let spirit be your guide. And it says, Butterfly Spirit, transformation is beautiful. So there's what's coming through here for me when we think about action is there is a sense right now between these two of you going through a period of internal growth and internal transformation. That is, I mean, when we think about the transformation from a caterpillar to a butterfly, that's intense. That's why it's so often used as the example for transformation. I mean, there's many things out there that transform. Even us as people, we transform. We go from this little baby infant to the person that we are at any given time after that. That's some intense transformation. But it's markedly so with the butterfly because it goes from something that the two things don't even look anything related to each other. A caterpillar does not look like a butterfly. And in addition to that, the butterfly has a completely different set of abilities than the caterpillar originally has. The caterpillar is landlocked, it's landbound, it walks, crawls everywhere. But the butterfly can fly. So it's not just about what's happening on the external level, it's actually what this creature transforms into. And that can be very scary. That can actually be what causes worry in our lives, is that we actually transform on some level. We realize that we have this additional ability. Now, it's not that we sit here and all of a sudden grow wings. It's that we tap into a part of our unique self that was always there, but that which we either ourselves were not aware of, or perhaps what we didn't understand the full capacity of. And what can happen is that once we start to tap into that, we start to realize, okay, when we're thinking about action and taking action, once we start to realize a part of ourselves that is very different, and it is like this ability to fly. Yeah, that can be worrisome to bring out because that's going to involve some change. That's going to, if you just think about it, if you were a caterpillar and suddenly all of a sudden now you're this creature that can fly, well, let's say you were living in a little box before. And as the caterpillar, okay, that was fine because you could crawl around and you still had a lot of stuff to do even though you were in this little container. But now you're a butterfly that's bigger and you have wings and you can fly. And now this box is no longer okay for you. So now you have to take action to leave the box. You have to take action to go out into something greater and bigger and beyond what you currently know, what currently worked for your original self, or your original perception of self. Now you're bringing out an additional aspect of yourself, and that's going to involve a change of your environment, perhaps a change of what you do for a living, a change of who you're surrounded by. And that can be scary. That can lead to a lot of worry. But this additional card that's coming through here when we're thinking about taking action, and we're talking about courage, the courage to take action. There is this component of, here with Hawk Spirit, let Spirit be your guide, that when we're working with courage, we're always working with the concept of faith. Faith that in taking action from a place of self-awareness and authentically bringing ourselves into any decision-making process to take action that we choose to focus on, that faith that it's going to produce a positive result. And with let Spirit be your guide, I think what this is really saying, when we think about a hawk soars in the sky. A hawk has a great, incredible vantage point that we don't have. And that vantage point is going to be able to see farther, see beyond, be able to see the purpose of your new ability that perhaps you can't see right now that you have. So let's tie this back to an actual example. So let's say let's think about most of us have been through been touched by the pandemic. So let's say a part of you've noticed, okay, this really intense worry has come up more and more around a sense of wanting to feel purpose in what you do for a living. And you don't feel right now that what you do, and maybe before the pandemic, you were fine going into the office. You were fine having a 9-to-5. You enjoyed your interactions with your coworkers, and it was a job. It paid well, it got the job done, and it was okay. But during the pandemic, you ended up working from home. And so the element of maybe what you enjoyed about working with your coworkers was taken away. And so your job was stripped down to your basic job duty, your job requirements. And you realized, man, this really doesn't resonate with me. It doesn't do anything for me. And throughout the pandemic, maybe you tapped into a part of yourself. Now, this doesn't have to be specifically related to the pandemic. I'm just using this as an example. You could have been going through this whole self-realization process for years coming up to this point, and suddenly there's like this aha moment, and you're like, oh my God, I can fly, when I couldn't before. But let's say this was due to the pandemic, and you had this time now to kind of reflect and see yourself in a different way. And all of a sudden now, there's a part of yourself that's really come up to being highlighted and realizing, well, what I'm doing for a living, my basic job description and duties, has nothing to do with this extra side to myself that I've discovered. Maybe you realize that you were really interested in helping others, and you maybe took a few online courses during the pandemic and realized, I really want to be a counselor. And I realized that in being curious about myself, that was the part that I enjoyed the most about me going to my job physically, was that I got to interact with my coworkers, but I was always kind of the one that they would come to get counsel and advice from, and I enjoyed that aspect. And now I've become aware of this part of myself, and I can't just sit and do my accounting work like I did before. Because it doesn't fulfill me. What fulfills me is this deep yearning need to counsel others in a specific area. And suddenly, it may not seem like you have wings and can fly compared to being the caterpillar, but in reality, it's the truth. In reality, that awareness of self and that part of yourself, it's like you can't put it back in the box, right? You can't unsee, you can't unknow it. And the more that you try, the more that part of yourself is going to want to come up to the surface. And that's where we start to create frustration and disconnection. Because the more we try to push it back down, the more it's going to kind of be there. So let's say now you are aware that you really want to pursue counseling, but this is going to involve a change. This is going to involve maybe having to go back to school. This is going to involve having the courage to act now from this place of awareness. And maybe that's where the worry is coming from. But this is where, when we think about courage, we have to take action from a place of faith. And this is where really tapping into your connection to spirit, tapping into your belief in self that you are a unique, singular being who has a specific place and a purpose, where you have to realize that spirit has a bigger plan, that there is this bigger vantage point. And to really, this month, when you're taking action from in whatever area you're realizing is being highlighted by worry, that it's all part of this bigger plan that perhaps you can't see, but spirit can. And this is where we meet our free will, where we can take action with destiny, which is us in this moment having this aha moment. Destiny is when you have the self-realization about a part of ourself that has now transformed. That is destiny. But it's our free will to choose to take action on it. So you could sit here and say, oh, well, I realize I really want to be a counselor, and I'm going to keep thinking about it, and I'm going to keep worrying about the fact that, am I really living my highest potential by just staying in this accounting job and I'm not pursuing this counseling career? And you could just stay there in that place of worry, and you could forever hide your wings. But that box is going to get tighter and tighter and feel more and more confining, and eventually you're going to be living in a place of nothing but worry, and you're going to feel confined, and you're going to feel like nothing in your life has meaning anymore because you're now a butterfly meant to fly and you're not flying. And so when we're thinking about now this can be reversed. So let's say instead you've always been focused on, let's say you've been a teacher your whole life, and suddenly you have this opportunity to become a stay-at-home parent with this wonderful individual that you got a chance to fall in love with. And now the worry is like, but I've always been a teacher. That's how I identified. I was always the caterpillar. And if I give this up, who am I? Well, now you're a parent. Now there's a different part of yourself. And if you're being called to do that, if you're being called to step away from a profession that you've done for 25 years, or even a profession you've done for 5 years, and you're being called to completely transform and release that, you shouldn't worry about it. If that's what you're feeling called to do, this is where curiosity comes in. You're being called to highlight this aspect of self because it is time to step into this new version. So if that new version is you becoming a parent and you being a stay-at-home parent, or a parent that no longer wants to teach, well, that's where you have faith in the divine plan. You have faith that there's a greater reason for this. Perhaps this is because you're meant to raise your child, and in doing so, you might end up actually developing some really neat education system that you utilize on your child at home, that you can eventually someday fall back on your teaching credential and be able to bring that out in another way. But right now, you're being called to transform, and a part of yourself is already transformed. So now it's about having faith and courage to take action. And that faith and courage might actually mean that where you're taking action is bringing yourself into a very vulnerable place. When you think about a butterfly leaving its cocoon, it is vulnerable for a good period of time because its wings are still kind of wet, it needs to dry out, it needs to figure out how to utilize them. And so that involves a lot of faith in its environment. And so when you think about taking action, courageous action, and you tap into the element of faith, this is about having faith that you can be vulnerable to your significant other by releasing your job to become a stay-at-home parent. Okay. Again, that's just an example. It could be the reverse. It could be a totally different aspect of self, but I'm just trying to give you guys an example as to what it looks like when you become curious about an aspect, especially pertaining to worry, how you can utilize that to highlight a part of yourself and then choose to take action, and what that means to take action. It can be scary. Every time we take action, when we say yes to something, we're saying no to something else, or vice versa. When we say no to something, we're saying yes to something, and that always implies some element of vulnerability. All right, now we're going to pull a card for contemplation. Contemplation is the final principle in the Triad of Engagement. And contemplation is where we get a chance to integrate. It's where we get a chance to connect. So when we're working with faith, with courage, we're working with connection, with contemplation. This is where we get to connect the consequences to the actions taken. We get to see where we were curious. We get to see where we took action. And then we get a chance to see what was the result. And we get to integrate that into ourselves, into our way of being, so that we can self-educate. So for contemplation for the month of July, we have Council of Light. And it says, divine orchestration, helpers in the subtle realms. When we're thinking about integration and connection, especially with self, there is this element that's coming through with your reading, Gemini, that really is talking about destiny. And when we're looking at here, it says right here, divine orchestration. And I think kind of what you're sitting with right now is that wrestling between free will and destiny. You hear the call, you hear the knocking. It's already happened. You've already transformed. But you're living from this place of worry. And where this integration needs, kind of the focus of integration, focus of where you're contemplating on all of this, on your actions this month in alignment with self. Where is this new version of self fitting into the greater picture? To kind of step it up and elevate it for yourself, especially when you're trying to find the courage to take action, trying to find the courage to face the change that's coming in your life, to face having to leave the box. And realize that Spirit has a plan. There is a divine quality to the intelligent design of our entire experience, and we will never be able to understand it fully. That's the beauty of life. We get to learn as we go. We get to unlock little pieces of it. But no matter how great of a scientific researcher you are, you're never going to understand 100% of our experience. But there is one quality that we can understand, which is that there is a divinity to it. There is beauty in how everything could be chaos, but instead it's organized chaos. From the tiniest molecule to the largest star in the sky, galaxies. And understanding that we're a part of this, that this is where we are meant to fulfill a place and a purpose. And to contemplate on where you feel this new version of self is being able to fit into this greater divine plan. So if you are being called, let's say, to walk away from just a basic 9-to-5 job to pursue a whole nother path of career focus. So let's say you do want to go into counseling. Well, what is that bigger plan? To fall back when you're trying to have the courage to go back to school, or have the courage to even just admit this out loud, that this is what I want to do with my life and this is what I want to start to take action on, in order to mitigate the worry. Where can you really start to step into alignment with the greater plan? To understand, I love this picture. This picture shows all these different spiritual and religious figures, that we know throughout time. And there's this quality to when you think about each one of these individuals, they went through such a dramatic transformation in their lives, and they went through great suffering. When we think of Jesus Christ, or we think of even his own mother, Mary, who, went through ridicule. I mean, can you imagine what it must have been like? Not only just to give birth, obviously, to a child, which involves suffering, but to have to go through that initial period of ridicule and censorship from those around you when you let them know I'm pregnant out of wedlock. But we think about the Buddha, and each and every one of these figures had to go through great suffering, but to transform. And then in order for them, the legacy that they left, the purpose that they filled was part of a greater divine plan. And that their messages are still known today because of that. Now, they had the choice to not step up into that. They had the choice to transform and to not utilize their newly transformed self. That when we talk about transformation, this can be transformation even of a way of thinking, a way of being. It doesn't even have to be, these grand religious people or figures. I mean, we can think of just Gandhi. Gandhi didn't have to put himself, in harm's way. He didn't have to go on hunger strikes. He didn't have to step up into that role of kind of spiritual warrior, so to speak. He could have just simply said, this is too big of a political concept for me to even have the smallest dent. I'm not even going to try. But instead, he stepped up and he met the call of destiny when he met it with his own free will. And he did show the place he was meant to fulfill. And there are a lot of people on many smaller levels that do this. There are people who are fantastic teachers who inspire one person to innovate in one area. Or we have parents who raise a wonderful, maybe self-aware children that go out and end up spreading joy and happiness and awareness to others. We never know how big and far-reaching our transformation is or is meant to go. But the one thing we have to fall back on is that there is a plan. And that even though we can't see it, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't follow what we're feeling called to do. That we shouldn't express. There's a reason why you are now coming out as a different version of self. Why you're feeling called from some aspect of your life has transformed. Be this, internal on a passionate side, be this on a mental side, your physical environment. Again, this is connection to self. So all of these aspects of yourself are part of your experience. It doesn't just have to be that all of a sudden you have a passion for this and now you have a passion for that. This can be that your physical environment changed and with it you physically changed. Or perhaps you did go through a transformation. Maybe a part of your physical self has changed. But now it's about trusting where that change is going to take you. And instead of worrying about where it's going to take you, you start acting from an empowered place towards allowing it to show you its divine purpose and plan, the higher, more evolved reason as to why this part of yourself transformed. All right, Gemini, I hope that this has been illuminating. I hope you get a chance to check out your spiritual connection readings and your partnership connection readings for the month of July. If you'd like to book a personal tarot reading from me, and those readings can be completely customizable, you just need to write that in the description box at the time of booking. Or if you'd like to work one-on-one with me, and we can work with the Triad of Engagement, or simply we will do tarot readings and oracle readings like this and kind of get a better feel for what you need out of your own life in your own counseling session. The links to book those, either one of those items is in the description box below. All right, Gemini, have a fantastic July.